Hello.
Good Erev Shabbos,
Everybody, Shabbos before I forget.
Good Erev Shabbos, everyone. If there's something if the audio is breaking up, please let me know immediately. I'll switch devices. Something says that the streaming is low, but let's see what happens.
On my end, the streaming is the same as yesterday.
Okay, excellent. So, all right, we're learning the Sicho from the Rebbe of Parshas Vayeira, the 18th of Mar Cheshvan. The year is Tavshim Tes, which is the end of 1988. So the Rebbe says like this: Doiver kama pa'amim, we've said many times, shekol sipurei haTorah heim chelik maTorah. Stories of the Torah, part of the Torah. Lashon hayrav, meaning, what does it mean? It's part of the Torah. Of course, part of the Torah. It's told in the Torah, but it means that it's part of the idea of Torah, which is hayra, a lesson. Hayra lechol echad ve'echad misra b'chai hayom yom, a lesson to each one of us in our daily lives. It's a lesson for all times, but specifically when we read that story, so to say, in the parsha of the week. So we live with the times, as the Alter Rebbe said, that we are a person must live with the times. A person must live with the lessons of the Parsha of Shavua. Amanas, the idea is because so to say, the gateway for the story or the happening that we learn about in the Parsha is the way we bring the energy of what we're studying of that week into the whole year, not just for the time. So what are we talking about specifically in our Parsha? Parshas Vayeira, which is this week is Parshas Vayeira. Shas chalasa v'reishisa. How does the parsha start? Vayeira elav havaya, that God revealed Himself to Avram. Tzarich lahavim, one has to understand ma'i ha'ira. What is the lesson? Shakol echad ve'echad misrael yoichel v'tzarich lilmod misipar vayeira elav havaya. How does one learn a lesson? Mainly, how do we apply ourselves to the lesson, and what can we take from it? To the idea of that God showed Himself, revealed Himself, so to say, to our father Avram. The Avram Avinu. L'chura space. L'chura, one could say, Yesh levar halimud mivayera lavavaya. Api mashakasav Rashi. One could understand the lesson that we could apply to that Hashem revealed Himself to Avram, based on what Rashi says, that Vayeira elav levarkas achayla. Why did He come see him? See, God revealed Himself many times. But in this specific case was He comes to visit the sick. The Rambam learns from here. We learn from Hashem how one has to visit the sick. From this we learn Hachiv de bikachayla. This is one of the sources of like it says, to learn from Hashem, that we should learn His ways. The Rambam quotes, just like He was mevakar chaylam, we should also be mevakar chaylam, which means to visit the sick. Kedisa beGemara, like it says in the Gemara 6 in Gemara Saita, Amar Rab Chama b'Rabbi Chanina. Rab Chama, the son of Rabbi Chanina, said, what does it say in the verse of Devarim? Achrei Hashem alekechu telechu. We should walk in the ways of Hashem. The Gemara says, can a person walk after Hashem? God is God. We're humans. How could we say that? Follow in the footsteps, meaning to say in the attributes of Hashem, in His behaviorisms. God visits the sick, and how do we know that God visits the sick? The Gemara quotes this week's parsha, that God revealed Himself in the place of Eilanei Mamre. It's a location. So the Gemara says, so too you should learn from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to visit the sick. That's one. So one thing we could say we learn from this week's parsha is the concept of Bikkur Chayil. A person has to visit the sick. It's a huge mitzvah. Another thing we could learn. Hachnasat Orchim. Also the great concept of being a host, of hosting people, of hosting guests. Like the Gemara says, that we know, we learn from this week's parsha that hosting guests or greeting guests is greater than to greet Hashem. How do we know that? Because in this week's parasha we learn, it says, Hashem, Moshe, Avram says to God, if it's okay with you, if I find grace in your eyes, don't be offended. I'm going to need to leave now because I have guests. So he preferred, or it was more important to Avram to spend time with his guests and to be a host than to spend time with Hashem. That the Gemara tells us that he left God, so to say, and he went to go pay attention and to greet his guests. He sees three people coming to him. So we have two lessons. One lesson is from God, so to say that God went to visit the sick, and the second lesson is from Avram, that Avram said, "Thank you very much for visiting me, but now I need to go. I have something that so to say is more important right now, which is to be a host." So the Rebbe says, Amnam, so that's seemingly what we could clearly learn from this week's parsha, from the beginning of this week's parsha. Amnam, the Rebbe says, however, Limudim hanal heim pratim neisafim al etzema in the Vayeira lavaya. The Rebbe says like this, that if the pasuk says God came and revealed himself to Avram, that's just freeze that statement. God reveals himself to Avram. And there you could learn, why did he reveal himself? Because he was visiting the sick. And when he revealed himself, Avram left that revelation to go be a host. But what about the revelation itself? So that's all Devarim, Pratim, Neisafim. Those are all additional details to the concept, to the great concept of revelation. Top of page 49. One. So the Rebbe is like this, Aleph. What was the reason? I mean, why is it? What was the reason why there was the revelation was to visit the sick, and also how Avram behaved in that revelation that he left God and he went to visit to be a host. And because everything in Torah is exact, we must say, it can't just be that the setting is that in the revelation we learn that we visit the sick, and in the revelation we learn that hosting is more important than the revelation. But there has to be something about the revelation itself that's a connection to us. The fact that there was a revelation to Avram means a person who walks out could say seemingly, okay, I don't get the revelation, but I can learn from the story that how important it is to visit the sick. I can learn from the story how important it is for me to host people. But about the revelation itself, how is that connected to me? And that the Rebbe is going to explain now. We've learned many times what Chazal teach us, that it's a medrash tanchuma, the ma'isa avos banim, that the happenings of our fathers, meaning to say the stories and the happenings of Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, is a siman, is a sign about how things are supposed to be with the children. That it's not just that from the happenings of the fathers we could understand experiences later that's going to happen to their children. That's seemingly what the Torah is telling us. Like we learn, let's say the difficulties of Yaakov could kind of be the life of a Jew, or the history of the Jewish people. El Yisraelim is more than that. This the Rebbe always said this. That Ma'isa Avos who are goyrim liyaseitz keinetz labanim. When it happens to the fathers, it's the cause of why it happens to the children. Means this Rebbe always says it's an asinas koyach. It's an empowering moment for the children that they should be able to go through this situation, and it also causes the situation to happen. But to be more specific, meaning to say the Rebbe is leading to that the fact that there's a revelation by Avram is the spring that there should be a revelation also by the children. The Rebbe says even further. It's known. There's two ways to understand a siman. A siman means a sign. Aleph, simon she'eni ela bir hadavar. You have sometimes that the thing is what it is. How do I know what it is? So I have a siman. A sign tells me this is what it is. This question is applied to kosher, right? When you have kosher, the Torah says specifically, what is a kosher animal? A kosher animal is an animal that chews its cuds and has split feet. So the question that the commentaries ask, does that make the animal kosher? Is that makes it kosher? It's just a sign that such an animal is kosher. I mean, it's kosher on its own, but how does Hashem show us that this is a kosher animal and the other thing is not a kosher animal? Is He gives a sign that you should look at the split hooves and the chewing of the cud. So He says over here, siman she'eni ela bir. There's one idea of a siman is that it's only a revelation. Kloimra siman hu inin chitzayni. The siman, the sign itself is something external. Like, let's say the splitting of the splitting of the hooves. It's not part of it doesn't make the thing. Its external connection is a revelation. So sometimes you need a siman, you need a sign about something. For instance, there's a lot of things. It's not just about kosher. It applies to a lot of things. It applies in how you look at people, right? Someone looks at judges a person by their dress. So does the dress itself define the person, or is it just a revelation of what kind of person would dress this way, right? It's siman. Another way of looking at a siman. The siman causes that the thing should be the way it's going to be. And the Rebbes is going to give an example to what's the two ideas here. To give an example, there's two ways to look at the signs of a lost object. Meaning, means to say the Gemara says, the Torah says, Halachic says, and obviously that applies also to common wisdom, that if a person finds something that's lost, you're looking for a sign to know the ownership of it. And the person who wants to claim ownership has to provide the signs, right? Someone says, I found the wallet. Show me how much money is in there, whatever the sign is. Hey, Ariel. So he says like this, Simon, you have a sign. The sign itself only is an indication that how do we know that this person is the owner of such and such article is because there's a sign. You do a simana because the person who has ownership is able to identify it by providing a siman, a sign, right? There's an inscription on the back. There's a coloring. There's a chip missing. One of the things are broken, right? There's different signs you could give to show your ownership. That you're familiar with that you know the article. Even if he made the sign, some people, right, do something on something that they own, whether they write their name, their phone number, or something else that they put on it, so they could later identify it that there's theirs. So they created the sign, but nevertheless, it's only a side thing. The ownership is the ownership. And it's your thing, and the sign is just a way for you to show your ownership. That's one way of looking at it. Another way, Beis hasimin humi muhuse shalplaini v'achiniker koyach hapoyel ha'umen she'asa b'hanifal. Sometimes the sign is not just something external. It's you could see, I see. Sometimes when you have children who do something in the house, so you don't know which child, but as soon as you see what the damage done, you could see from the way it was done which child it was, because it's their personality that comes out in what they're doing. So here the Rebbes says there's sometimes, for instance, a person is a craftsman. So the sign is not a sign specifically, but you could see that, okay, this person is the person who draws this way, who makes this thing. So siman hu mi mahus shalplaini, it shows the essence of the person. Till you could see the power of the person who did something by nifel and what he's done or she's done, right? So if it's an artist, or if it's a piece of art, or if it's a piece of drawing, it's not a side thing. You see the character of the person. Okay, sure, and yeah, I could. They say the story of the Rebbe Rashab, that he once heard someone making noise outside at 3 a.m. He goes, so who would make noise like that at 3 a.m? It's only my cousin from Israel, Eretz Yisrael. You have to imagine, this is someone he never met, and someone who lived in Eretz Yisrael. It wasn't like those days they flew. They came once in their lifetime from Eretz Yisrael back to Russia. But when he heard the noise outside, he said, it must be my cousin. He would only make such noise in the morning like this. The identification is the connection, is you see the person in it, and that's his connection or her connection to the article. So what does this have to do with what we're saying here? So the Rebbe says, when we say that the fathers, it's not just a sign, an external sign. Because the fathers did it, it caused that it should happen by us. It's not a side thing that we have. How do we know that we're connected to Avram? How do we know we're connected to Yitzchak, Sarah, Rivka? Is because we did similar things. The fact that they did it is why we do it. Because these things are the essence of the fathers, becomes the essence of the children. Like it says, what is the Rashi, the Gemara brings down? What is the sign of a Jewish person? The Gemara says, I think it's a Gemara. The Gemara says, there's three signs to identify the character of a Jew. If they have compassion, if they have shame, bashful, they're not going to just be out there like that, and they're kind. If you don't see, the Rambam says, if you see people that are lacking one of these three signs, you have to wonder where they come from. So if they're not rachmanim, if you don't have compassion, you're not baishanim, and you're not going mechasadim, people who are kind and giving, then or the opposite. If you have those three qualities, those are the qualities of a Jew. These are the three signs of our fathers. Avram is acts of kindness, like it says. Like it says in this week's parsha, Avram commands his family to do kindness. It's not external. That how do we know a Jew is connected to Avram is because he's also kind, or she's also kind. That's the character of a Jew. It's not only a sign to show us this is a Jew. The identification, the essence of a Jew is a person who's kind, because we have the characteristics of Avram. And Baishanim is a byproduct of Yitzchak, of Gvura. And Rachmanim, of course, is Yaakov. If a person is lacking one of these four signs, it's a Chasarim B'Yadis. It's a question about the identity of a Jew. Page 50. Movement, so that's understood. Also in our situation here. If Avram had a revelation, that becomes the character of a Jew, that a Jew has these experiences. It means that this will also be by the children. This becomes their character, that there are people that have revelation of godliness. That also by every single Jew has to be the concept of the revelation of godliness. And the Rebbes is going to explain. What does this mean? After it's in the continuation of the conversation, that it says God revealed himself to Avram. It says, he's sitting by the entrance of the tent. Mashma, so we see when the fact that the Torah tells us where Avram was sitting, why is it important to know where Avram was sitting when God came to him? It says that he's sitting there at the entrance of the gate. And why is he sitting at the entrance of the gate? Rashi tells us, Lirais, to see, he's waiting for guests. He's waiting to host people. That way he was sitting there before, and while he was sitting at the entrance of his tent waiting for people, that's when God revealed himself. So the Rebbe says, therefore we must assume, and if the Torah tells us that that's why God revealed himself. It was positioning himself and the importance and the emphasis that he had on Hachnasat Orchim, on having guests, that he sat there in his medical condition at his age, just waiting for someone to come by so he could be a host. That's God seeing that. God said, I have to reveal myself to him. This is not a contradiction where we said Vayeira love that God only came to visit the sick. We know that both visiting the sick and a host being a host come from the same place of being being loving to your fellow person. Therefore, we know from there we see that this is the way to identify a person that's trying to that there's a concept of revelation. When a person is a hospitable people, and general and specifically, and in general, kind, giving people. That is the method of revelation. The famous story that the Rebbe told when he became leader, when he accepted on himself the leadership of Rebbe, and he told the story about each Rebbe about their acts of kindness. The story he told of the Tzemach Tzedek, that the Tzemach Tzedek used to have revelations from his grandfather, the Alter Rebbe, and it was only that someone came to him for a loan, and he says, "Wait, I have to go to daven. After davening, come see me." But in the meantime, in his the Tzemach Tzedek's davening, the person was waiting alone. He needed the money to go to the market to be competitive. And when he realized that every minute that the person's waiting, he becomes less. He has less of an advantage in the market, and it's gonna be harder for him to make a living. The Tzemach Tzedek took off his talis, took off his tefillin, and ran to find the person and gave him a loan. And at that moment, at that time, his grandfather did not come to reveal himself for a long time to him. It was only after he did that act of kindness he had the revelation. So we see clearly the concept of acts of kindness with the concept of revelation. Ve'ishleim, the Rebbes says, "Vayeira lav Vayeira shenasa idei Hachnasat Orchim, hu inin naili yaisim mekabos b'nei Shechina." So what do we see from here? That the revelation that is an effect from being a person who's looking to host is even greater than the concept of greeting God. What's that mean? You have to understand what that means, because it goes in a circle. God came to meet him because he wanted to see guests, and when he sees the guest, he leaves God, right? We say clearly that Avram was, so what happens? Avram wants the guest. The wanting the guest is a revelation, but that revelation doesn't come to the revelation to the actually doing the being a host. So therefore, we say clearly that's greater to be a host, to host people, to be hospitable, than to greet God. Why? Because the whole reason why you got the revelation is because you wanted to be a host. So the host, that was the goyim, that was what caused the revelation. So when you have the opportunity to be the host, of course you have to leave the revelation. This is the lesson that we could learn. That God revealed himself to Abram. Hold on a second. Give me a second, Aaron. It says that in order that the Rebbes, this is not Tafshim and Tes, the Rebbes is completing the year of the Avelis of mourning for his wife, his dear wife, the Rebbe Chaimushke. So the Rebbe says that every Jew has the ability. The sons and daughters of our father Avram. You have the ability to have the revelation. But it doesn't come it doesn't come free. Nothing in Judaism comes free, because Yiddishkeit, God wants avoda. Be a person who's hospitable. Be out there, be a person of chesed. Maschil is that starting from Hachonis starting with the idea of Hachnasat Orchim and in general acts of kindness. Yes, Aaron.
Couldn't he consider God a guest?
Sorry?
Just okay, you're saying God is a revelation, correct?
A revelation of godliness, yes.
Right, but couldn't he treat him like a guest and bring him in as one of the guests?
That's a good question, but that's a good question. That Avram could have treated God as a guest, but Avram wanted real guests. It's hard. He wanted guests that were lacking. God's not lacking. He wanted guests that needed a house, needed a good meal. And we're moving. From here we see how much a person should engage and be. Look, Avram sat at the gate of the entrance of his tent. The to be preoccupied, and bishtadel means to put in effort into being a host and to be general to acts of kindness. Like our father Avram, he didn't just host guests, he seeked out guests. The word chipash is to seek. And when he sees them, notwithstanding his condition, he runs to them. And he gives them to eat. Like I said in the Torah share, I did not learn that Sicho, but it seems like the same idea. That he didn't just give them leftovers, he gave them the best food. He had to slaughter 3 cows to give them 3 tongues, which was a delicacy in the time, bechardel, in a kind of mustard, I guess that was a delicacy. The Rebbe says tachlis. Not talking major ruchnis inyanim here. Be hospitable. A person says, well, we could have a conversation about a mimer, we could talk holiness, we could talk about Shabbos candles. That's all nice. Be acts of kindness, tachlis. Go out there, seek out a person, invite that person in, have them as a guest in your house, do an act of kindness, give a smile to someone. all the ruchnis, all the spiritual is nice too. But from Avraham Avinu, he didn't go there and invite them into the house and start talking to them about God right away. First, he fed them. And Hachnasat Orchim, you should try to have guests, mitoich zrizus, u'b'sefer upon the office. And of course, the importance of all is to have it in a good sefer upon the office in a kind way. And greet people in a kind way. And just like this is applicable to physical hosting people and physical providing for people, for the benefit of the material of the body. Also after that, and with that, is Hachnasat Orchim is being a host and Gemilas Chasadim and being a giving person. For spiritual, to provide people spiritually. And we know that our Chassidim, and now this is the mission of every Chassid that we have from the Baal Shem Tov down to the Alter Rebbe, down to our generation, is to be Hafatzas Atayres Vayadis, to spread Torah and Judaism and to spread the wellsprings of Chassidus. V'yeshleimer, as we're getting ready for Yitas Kislev in the month of Kislev. V'yeshleimer, shv'negei Hachnasat Orchim nis Chasadim v'ruchnis mudgish v'yoser hagil de'ver elav avaya. And the Rebbe says that we could say that when it comes to being a spiritual host of spirituality and of providing, also we have a great emphasis on the idea of revelation of Hashem. The Rebbe says, when a person provides for someone in a material way, when God reveals himself to that person, he or she, is because God likes to be in an environment of kindness, that people do kind deeds. Because the person did an act of kindness to someone else, that's enough of a merit that God should do a kindness. What's a revelation? Revelation is an act of kindness. God is revealing himself. He doesn't have to reveal himself to anyone. It doesn't say anywhere he has to. It's an addition. It's because it's a chesed, but he's responding to your chesed. When a person provides and is hospitable to a person in addition to that, also spirituality. Then the spiritual means to say is like this. The Rebbe is saying, when a person gets a revelation, the revelation is spiritual. What triggers the revelation? Physical acts of kindness. But here, when a person also does spiritual acts of kindness to another person, that not necessarily goes out of their own time, sits at the gate, sits at the tent, at the entrance of their tent, looking to help another yid, another person in general, in their spiritual growth and spiritual awareness. So the revelation is part of what you're doing. You're giving spirituality, you're revealing godliness to the person, you're getting revelation. What does it mean to do Gemilas Chasadim, acts of kindness spiritually? You're bringing a yid closer to God. Therefore, of course, Mida Keneged Mida. God responds in kind and gives you more revelation. The Rebbe says, they put this in simple English, like they say. Yeshem Yehudim Rabim, the Rebbe says, Tachlis, there's many Jews out there. This people, this the Rebbe is talking in 1989 and doesn't change the fact. 1988, things haven't changed. There are many Jews out there. They're in a situation of hunger and thirst for spiritual substance. Yadus, Torah, mitzvahs for Judaism, for Torah, for the mitzvahs, knowledge. The people who are thirsty for chassidus, for the inner secrets of Torah. Like the prophet says, in the times of Mashiach, we're not going to be hungry for bread. We're not going to be thirsty for physical water. To hear the word of God. Therefore, it's an obligation and an opportunity and a merit. Not just when a person comes to you and says, could you help me spiritually? That you're there available for them, but to seek out. The Rebbe says you don't have to seek too hard. You see people everywhere. To give them to eat and to give them to drink, with spiritual substance, which is Torah, like Torah, which is considered water, and also Mayim Torah, to the inner secrets of Torah, which is like milk and honey, Shem and V'yayin, wine and oil. And the Rebbe says, it's not just something that we can do, it's something that's very important and pressing, that we have to do it. We're holding it's a question of life and death. People are spiritually in a very crucial situation. And therefore you have to push it, sit there, and it's a question. You want to save this person's life spiritually. We're not talking about people that are missing extras. Tanig means pleasures. The basics they have, but they need some. We'd like to have a little icing on the cake, a little more sweetness to their Yiddishkeit. That such a person you shouldn't pay attention to and say, well, you have the basics, I'm not going to pay attention to you. Even them you should give. Avram could have opened the fridge and said, here's leftover cholent, or here's the Shabbos' chicken. No, he went and slaughtered 3 cows and gave them fresh delicacies of tongues. There's also people out there, unfortunately, that their spiritual existence is dependent on someone helping them. They don't have even the basics of spiritual bread and water. Like the Rambam says, what is the sign of a smart person? A person who's supposed to be a chacham. And every Jew that Rebbes is a chacham that's lacking knowledge, that's like a death for them. The Rebbe says tachlis. Bottom line, when you meet the Yid on the street, you should be able to identify on this person's behaviorism. Like the Gemara says, you could see a chacham from their behaviorism and how they walk and how they talk and how they eat. You look at the person and say this person's behaving like a spiritual animal. You don't see the qualities of a chacham, of a person who should have been affected by Torah. You could sometimes, not the person's lacking one, lacking all 10. You're not supposed to look down at the person. You have compassion for the person. That's a sign of a Yid. What's a sign of a Yid? The person who has compassion for another person. There's mamash almost like spiritually dead. Go out there and identify that and find that and help that person. And because, like we learned from Avram, that every person has to be engaged in finding for that person, for another person, there to be hospitable to that person, is that the idea when a person goes out there and spreads Torah and Yiddishkeit, also spreading the well springs of Chassidus, of the inner parts of Torah. A person may say that he's saying, therefore, a person has to go out there and do it. He says the person may claim, page 52, that Lita in V'chein hu be'emes, it may say, and maybe that the person is right. What do you want from me? I've been doing that for a long time. I've been out there, I'm spreading Torah, I'm spreading Yiddishkeit, I'm spreading Chassidus. I have names. You can go to the Rebbe, you go to God with names. You want to see a list of names of people that I influenced? Let me take a break. Right now I need to do it. I did a lot. I preoccupied, put my life to that. Let me have a little vacation. So what's the answer? You have to look at what Avram did. Avram Avinu and Sarah, before even they did circumcision, they spent their life spreading the word of God, that there's a one God in the world. Like it says, even when they came to Eretz Canaan, Torah clearly says they've made people, they created people, they gave them spiritual identity, spiritual life, spiritual awareness, godly awareness. They brought them under the spirituality of godliness. Avram Megaris Anashim. It says Avram converted the men, and Sarah, the continuation is Sarah engaged with the women. Like the Rambam says, that right away Avram started to call out in a great voice to the whole world, and to let the world know that there's one God in the world, and only He, this God, we should serve. He didn't stay positioned in his place. He went from city to city. He went from kingdom to kingdom. Le'eretz Canaan, v'hu koira, achi niskapso elav alfi revavis. This is all the Rambam saying. Until he gathered the Rambam says thousand, revavis is tens of thousands. Avraham Avinu gathered tens of thousands of people. Imagine the influence. We didn't have that many people those days. V'afal pikein, nevertheless, b'yoyse ben tisha v'teisha shani, he's 99 years old. He just circumcised himself. He's sick. He's feeling pain. He's 3 days after the circumcision. He just finished circumcising himself. No one was available to help him even. Everyone was in pain. He just circumcised the whole house. So all the servants, his son Yishmael, everyone was sitting there in pain. Yoshev Pesach, what does he do? He would say, they have a sign, we're closed for business. We're not feeling well. We need a little break. No, Avram not only didn't he put up a closed sign, or I'm absent for not feeling well, give me a week. He sat there at the Pesach oil. God had to bring out the sun to keep people away. Yoshev Pesach oil, he sits by the entrance of his tent. Is there anyone he could bring home to be hospitable? Maybe there's one more person. I already identified tens of thousands of people, the Rambam says. And he did a lifelong work in helping people. But maybe there's one person I missed. One person I could bring into the house and talk to him, give him food, give them some insight, get some love, some needed TLC, some attention. To give them some food and to drink. The person is going to make a bracha. Like we learned later in the parsha, he made an eshel. Avram said, Rashi says he made a pundak, he made a hotel where people would get free food, but they would have to make a bracha. And as soon as he sees 3 people, he's sitting there waiting, and God's talking to him, and he's enjoying God's company, of course. He jumps up and he runs to them. Moving. So therefore, the Rebbe says, applying this back to ourselves, in our own life. The Rebbe is not questioning what you've done. No one's saying you haven't worked a lifelong of helping people and doing in people and engaging in people. But you've done a lot in spreading Torah and Yiddishkeit. You have to do more. More. What's the proof? Because Mashiach's not here yet. The carve oid Yehudi to bring another Jew and another Jew. Pratis Yosef, the Rebbe says, the Rebbe says also even more. It's not just that there may be one person you didn't reach. Meaning to say you've done a lot, and there's huge rewards for you. But what's the person who didn't meet you yet? Why is it that his fault or her fault? Right? Let's say Avram went out there and he met tens of thousands of people. But there's that one person that hasn't been met. So that person should not be affected by Avram or Sarah because they already met 10,000 people. So you'd say, okay, the benefits for the person. But Avram, you're right. Avram did a lot. The Rebbe said no. It's beneficial both for Avram and for the person. He says, this that a person says that I've already done a lot in spreading Yiddishkeit, I've done a lot in teaching. That attitude is I've saved myself. I'm good. What's the actual literal translation is Ani esnafshi tzalti. I saved myself. What do you mean saved yourself? I saved myself from being a person that has to be engaging. I've engaged. But the person, like I said, what's have to do with this person? You saved yourself, but this person, because you saved yourself, therefore this person who hasn't yet been engaged shouldn't be affected. And even in your responsibility, the very fact that you see that there's a yid, there's someone out there, he or she that needs your influence, your help, spiritually or materially. That you have, like the Rebbe says, why do you see that? Why did it come to your attention? Obviously, God wanted you to see that. As the Baal Shem Tov says, the very fact that it comes to your attention, by definition, if you're a believer, and we are all believers in the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, the very fact that comes to your attention means you have to be engaged in it. Not that you should tell someone else to say, well, I've done enough. This is part of your job and your mission. and notwithstanding of all let's say the mental exhaustion you may have, you have to have faith that God gave you the strength to reach out to this Jew as well. God does not ask something you can't do. Therefore, you have to put away all your things and run Vayars the Krasam to reach out to this extra next Jew. The Kara Kadosh Baruch Hu Torah mitzvahs. To bring that person, he or she, under back to Torah mitzvahs. And the Rebbes continues. We have a few more minutes. It's very interesting farbrengen, because this is a farbrengen that you would really hear in the 50s and 60s. This is the Rebbe talking in 1988. That especially after my father-in-law, meaning the Rebbe's father-in-law, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, said that our generation's job, Savasha, what is the moment? What is the moment demand? If in any time, specifically our generation is our job is to not so much about self-development, but more to go out there and to spread Torah, Judaism, and teachings of Chassidus. Like we said yesterday, we said 2 days ago. The Rebbe said, I said it last year. I said it 10 years ago. We're saying it again now. The Rebbe says, we have to add, and to point out. This that we say, that we have to spread Torah, Yiddishkeit, and the inner secrets of Torah. No person could say that doesn't mean me. Everyone, whether you're a large person or a small person, age, in knowledge, etc. And the Rebbe says, men, women, and children. That because they need to, that means they can. And you have to be able to affect everyone. And everyone has to go out and try to affect others. And if a person says, I don't know, what do you want from me? I'm lacking knowledge to be effective. If a person says, I can't learn, there's someone out there that's ready to teach you. And there's someone there's always a way to be a mashpia. The Rebbe is always into. It's not about just being a makabel, someone who receives, but also to be someone who gives. Also young people. Today we're teaching Chassidus even to younger children in a way that they understand a little bit. Like the Zohar says in this week's parsha, Kad Yahav Kiriv Liyayma Mishnichai. One of the signs of the days of the coming of Mashiach is going to be that everyone, even the multiples, are going to be engaged in the wisdom of the inner teachings of Torah. I'm just going to finish this paragraph, and then Aaron, you could ask your question. Well, the Hara, the Rebbe says to point out that don't push this off till tomorrow. It has to be done now. Even here. Don't say, well, I'm going to get on a plane, I'm going to get a passport, I'm going to fly somewhere far to find someone who doesn't know. There's someone who doesn't know right now, right where you are. Find that person, like Avram was looking. Whether it's in the revealed parts of Torah, whether it's in teaching Chassidus. Oh, see, this is all the inspiration we had. Thank you, Aaron and Barbara. Starting off with teaching and learning the laws of Shabbos. All right, everyone. I want to wish you all a Shavua Tov. Aaron, you wanted to ask something?
Yeah, so you said everyone should take, even if it's a few minutes, should learn something in Torah. But there's these people who they pay Barker, who spends his life studying, so that he can sit and study, and then they get all the mitzvahs. So that guy doesn't study; he goes and works.
The Rebbe said many times on that. That's the idea of Yisachar and Zevulun. That's so the person learns extra. That doesn't make you you have to learn anyways. That's just giving more emphasis. That's adding to your responsibility of learning. No person could get off learning just because you sponsor learning of other people. All right, everyone. Laila Tov and a good